Once upon a time, in the Igbo-speaking lands in the eastern part of Nigeria, there lived two young sisters, Nkechi and Anwurika. Nkechi, the younger one, was 9 years old, with smooth dark skin that glowed like the night. Anwurika, her older sister, was 13 years old, tall and slender, with a deep brown complexion that seemed to shimmer under the sun. Anwurika and Nkechi lived with their mother, popularly known as Nwanyuwa in the community. Nwanyuwa was a 40-year-old widow. She was a very generous and kind-hearted woman who always showed love and compassion, not just to her children, but to other children in the village as well. Every year, on the 11th of November, their village celebrated the Masquerade Festival, a lively occasion where the streets were filled with colorful and masked figures who danced, drummed, and performed ancient rituals. This Masquerade Festival was always a day of joy, excitement, and celebration, but also a day of danger, for the masqueraders were known to become wild and unpredictable under the influence of certain herbs and potions. On this particular day, as was customary, Nwanyuwa took her daughters, Anwurika and Nkechi, to the bustling town market to shop for food and goods. The market was alive with sounds of laughter, bargaining, and the smell of freshly fried akara and roasted plantain with groundnuts. People moved in a joyful blur, and the girls marveled at the array of goods. They had no idea that the festival had begun in earnest, and soon the masqueraders would begin their wild dances in the market square. Soon after, as the sun climbed higher, the atmosphere in the market began to change. The drumming grew louder, the chanting more intense, and the air became thick with excitement. The masqueraders, with their large, terrifying masks and bright costumes, emerged from the shadows. Unbeknownst to the villagers, the masqueraders had partaken in a strong potion that made them lose control. Under the spell of the drug, they became violent, striking out at anyone who came too close. Suddenly, there was confusion everywhere. The masqueraders began to flog everyone in sight, especially the women and the little children. People screamed, running in every direction. The sound of frantic footsteps filled the air as a stampede of terrified villagers spread throughout the market. In the madness that followed, Wanyowa lost sight of her two daughters, Nkechi and Anwurika. The crowd surged, and Nkechi and Anwurika were separated from their mother. The girls ran off in different directions, their hearts racing with fear. So, Anwurika, realizing she was lost, stopped and took a deep breath. She could hear the shouts of the crowd and the whips of the masqueraders cutting through the air. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she knew she had to stay calm. She closed her eyes for a moment and remembered that during family prayer times, her mother would always say, "When you are in trouble, ask God for help." And so she whispered a short prayer. "Dear great God, please help me find my mom and Nkechi. Bring us together again, for I am afraid and we are lost, and I hope that nothing has happened to my family." For a moment, everything around her seemed to stand still. The air was thick with tension. But as soon as Anwurika opened her eyes, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. Meanwhile, Nkechi, who was also lost and frightened, had been flung aside by a masquerade. She lay on the ground for a moment, too stunned to move. But as soon as she got up, she spotted a familiar figure in the crowd. It was her sister, Anwurika. "Anwurika!" Nkechi cried and shouted, running towards her. The two sisters clung to each other, with relief flooding their hearts. The masqueraders who had wreaked havoc in the village slowly began to calm down as the effects of the potion began to wear off. The villagers, though bruised and shaken, began to gather themselves, grateful that the worst had passed. Soon after that moment, Nwanyuwa, equally distressed and searching frantically for her two daughters, heard their voices. She ran towards them, calling their names, Nkechi, Anwurika, and embraced her children happily and joyfully. Some moments later, after Anwurika and Nkechi had calmed down and relaxed a bit, the girls started to narrate their experiences to their mother. The girls, though they had been frightened by the flogging and the wild masqueraders, had learned an important lesson that day: the power of prayer and the strength of family in times of need. Nwanyuwa, with tears in her eyes, hugged her daughters closely and said, "We may not always be able to control what happens in the world, but we must never lose hope. You prayed, Anwurika, and your prayer brought us back safely together. And always remember, we are stronger when we are together." Take a look around you. Children lying down on the floor, mothers still looking for their children. But you prayed and God brought us back together. That is a valuable lesson you must never forget in your life. Whenever you are in trouble, just say a simple prayer, asking God for help. Gradually, as the years went by, the Masquerade Festival, which was a yearly celebration in the village, was no longer celebrated, and it had become the festival of pain rather than celebration of joy. With time, coupled with the continuous harming of children and women due to the concoction taken by the masqueraders, the villagers stopped celebrating the festival and preferred gathering to dance and pray for peace and protection for families and the community. They believed that the angels watched over them and would protect them from any other harm. The moral of this story is that faith and prayer can be a source of comfort and strength in times of fear, chaos, uncertainty, and even helplessness. It can give people hope and help them to cope with difficult situations. This story of Anwurika, Nkechi, and Nwanyuwa also teaches that families can be a source of strength and support for each other, especially in times of difficulty and hopeless situations. When families stay together and pray together, they can find comfort and strength in each other. Thank you.